My wife is at home, but she likes Rachel, so all is good. Yeah, well, first of all, give it up to Spinatos for having us all here. Yeah. As she said, I'm Eric from A Taste of AZ, and we really focus on telling the stories of Arizona beverage through our magazine, through our books, through our festivals. We have a festival coming up November 1st at Salt Lake Field. But we're also part of that organization, Healing Hospitality. So as we'll talk about today, we know the hospitality industry is brutal, right? I mean, it's a tough industry. How many people are in the industry? Can I see a show of hands? So most of you, yeah. So you know how brutal it can be, right? But we all just, we suck it up and we just do what we do. We love it, right? So Healing Hospitality actually is a nonprofit where we offer different mindfulness type of experiences or resources for people in the industry to find some healthy outlets and some healthy opportunities to kind of counteract sometimes the damage, I guess, that the industry does to our minds and our bodies. So we got Alex over here. She's representing Healing Hospitality as well. And then over at our table there, we got magazines and we've got some flyers for our events. So yeah, I'm very excited about this because for me, the restaurant industry is very special. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, my grandmother owned our town restaurant. So, people always ask me, why did it take me so long to realize that I was meant to eat and drink for a living? But here I am, 46, and I finally made it happen. But being around the restaurant, I saw the passion and the drive and the determination of people in the industry. So I've always had that special connection. But, people like Spinatos and, AZ Locale and Someburros are doing things that are showing you that, you can be successful in this industry with some intention and with some great leadership. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I think it's time to meet our panelists, right? Are we ready? We got the music queued up for them. We're going to start with, for this gentleman. So the first panelist he's the CEO or co-owner of Spinatos Pizzeria and Family Kitchen, family-owned business. Anthony has helped grow the restaurant from its roots into a beloved Arizona institution. He's known for his passion for leadership, believing that Spinatos isn't just pizza, but it's about people and community. So welcome, Anthony Spinato.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you, brother. Is that one for me?
First mic.
Okay.
I have to say I'm very proud of their music selection. Being a 90s kid, we got Radiohead. Let's see, we've got some other. Tim, I don't think I know what your song is, so I'm excited to hear this one. But our next panelist is the owner and president of Someburros, family-owned Arizona restaurant group built on his Nana Isabel's Sonoran recipes. So Tim is a Tempe native, an author, a community leader, and he's grown the brand to 18 locations with his wife Julie and her 3 children and 2 grandchildren by his side. So welcome, Tim Velasquez.
I like it.
Perfect. It's perfect. Yes. Thank you.
Oh, that's in there.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, so finally we've got the owner of AZ Locale. He spent 27 years connecting people with great beer. He's dedicated to supporting Arizona's craft community and creating spaces where relationships thrive. Ted led the distribution for 4 Peaks, helping to bring Arizona's largest brewery closer to the people who love it. Welcome, Ted Gould.
Oh, I want my music to go through a little bit. Come on, let it go.
Yeah.
It's like
Here
slow. Can't stop. Thanks for having me.
What is that?
All right. Eric?
Yeah.
Oh, yep. There we go.
Way to keep it.
Yes.
Yeah, we needed that.
Some good quotes in the song, too.
All right, guys. First of all, A+ on all your song selections. Nice work. All right, so we're going to just kind of jump right into this. I told them that I was going to hit them with some really hardcore questions. I gave them a list of questions that we're going to ask, and then I threw those away, and I have a whole nother set of
Yes,
questions.
I like that.
There you go. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Andy, we'll start with you then.
All right.
So, all right. So, in the U.S., restaurant work is often looked at as kind of a stopover or something that you're doing before you get into your real career, right?
Yeah.
But across the world, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It can be a very respected and sought after career. So, how have you built a culture at Spinatos that makes people want to stay and grow with the company long term?
Well, I'm a second generation owner here at Spinato, so I first have to kind of give the nod to my mother and father who really modeled just an incredible amount of humility and sacrifice. So it has to start with you. There's just, I think we've shown that we're willing to do anything. I think that's what I saw early on is that, if you had to plunge the toilet, right, you plunge the toilet, you got to mop the floor, it was all those things. And so there was a pride. And I know our staff sees that in us today. Like you mentioned that, yeah, it's different in the US, and I just go to battle for that, because this is one of those careers that if you show people that this is it, like the service-minded, the service is where the joy comes from. Like I get to serve you, and as soon as I do that, I see a smile on your face, right? I receive immediately with that. There's not a lot of jobs that we get to connect with like firsthand, So I think there's that part of it that you just have to, I talk a lot about that with our staff and just, that selflessness, that sacrifice, and just, taking care of people in that way, it gives to you immediately, and there's joy and there's something about it. But in addition to that, I think we've always said we're in the people business, not the pizza business, right? And so the culture is like wind. You just got to decide, do you want it at your back in your sails, or do you want it in your face? And so when you look at people, do you see them as your greatest asset? We know that our guests provide for our family. We know that they put shoes on our feet, clothes on our back. And so when you see that the provision is there, and that's who employs, that's why we're in business, we know that the guest experience is never going to exceed the employee experience. So we've got to just level up on culture, understanding that when that door opens is the most important thing, right? Walking through that door, and when the back door opens, whoever's coming to work here, our responsibility as owners, right, is to make sure that we've given them the tools, we've given them the resources, but more important, we've given them our hearts. And I think it's one of those things that you give people your heart, they'll give you their hands, right? And they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you've got to really understand that we are in the people business, and it doesn't even matter if you're in the restaurant business. It's just whatever you're doing requires people, and those will always be your greatest asset, and that can't be faked. And it's just one of those things that I've seen modeled from when I was 6. My dad was waking me up on Saturday mornings when I just wanted to ride my bike, and build forts. And so I had that model from the beginning. And so that culture that was always there, Eric, it's like we just had to define it and create clarity around it. We call it our playbook, and we have fundamentals. And I think that was one of the things that I would encourage you is know why you're in business, right? Understand how you make that all possible. And if you don't see people as your leading, denominator in that, then you've missed your opportunity, because everything, even with AI, and everything happens with people. And so I've just seen it, and we've modeled it, and God God forbid we ever stop that you wouldn't have the same Spinatos. You know, we have just so many people that have joined this cause for so many years that have done things with us as our family, and wanted to extend the Spinatos experience and do all the hard work and do the things that we would do. But to just kind of wrap it up, you got to model it. You got to walk the walk, you know, and you have to be passionate about it. I was just in the restaurant yesterday. We had leeks, right? I'm down there on a Sunday. I missed church. It's not where I wanted to be, but I told my wife I wasn't going there to fix the leak. I just needed to be there. I had to show up, right? And sometimes that's all you need to do as a leader, and that's what culture is I don't know what to do, you know? And I just said, if I got to hold a bucket for 8 hours, I got to hold a bucket, you know? And so I'll close with that.
I like you. Now, how many locations you guys have total?
We have six full-service restaurants. We're down in the, it feels crazy sometimes, about 430 team members, and we're down in the PHX, whatever the new arena is now called that the Suns play in.
Yeah.
I think it's Mortgage something, and then Cardinal Stadium. So we do restaurant-to-you food down there. Everything's fresh, so we consider them restaurants, you know, because there's nothing happening there that's wouldn't be happening back there.
So I hope you don't mind a follow-up question to that.
Sure.
It's like, how do you, with all those locations and all those people, how do you communicate that across? How is that people-focused communicating across?
Yeah, so when we were about 40 years old, you know, it's a great time to look back and say, how did we get here, right? And I read a book by Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage, and it was really about how to establish a playbook, like why we exist, how do we behave, your core values, right? What do we do? What's most important, right? How will we succeed? When you're 40 years old, you know, I just turned 50 about a month ago. I remember turning 40. It was a really good time to look back and you kind of know who you are. And so we got to look back and really see not our successes, but right, we were standing on a pile of mistakes. But what was it that got us through all of those mistakes? And so that's where we got real clear. The clarity is essential, right? The book says, you know, if you asked 100 employees what makes Spinato successful, before that time, they would give you 100 different answers. The playbook allowed us to create on one card, right? Why do we exist? Which is, we exist to enhance the lives of others, our get out of the bed moment, right? You had the worst day ever. Why would I go back the next day? I'm just trying to make your life and the team member's life a little bit better. And we do that. We have steps of service. So we had to really get clear on what that was so we could articulate it. And it just took that, it just like tightened us up to where it was very specific, you know, to what our culture is. And then it helps every team member know how they live up to it, right? How they execute it. And so it's just that clarity. And we just say, listen, whatever this says, we talk about it, but it's also do this the way that you would do it genuinely, right? Like, don't try and be me, be you because everyone else is taken. That uniqueness for why we hired you. Just go about, you know, delivering this culture in a way that you would genuinely do it, you know? So it's about clarity. You know, we just realized it was a lot of things, but then we had to get down to really the specifics so we can talk about it. We can be chief reminding officers. So every time an exceptional pizza comes out of the kitchen, I can go, now that's exceptional food for our community to build memories around. That's part of what we do, right? And if there's something that we want to talk about with how will we succeed, we're an employer of choice, right? If you're taking great care of your teammate, I go, you know, thank you for making us an employer of choice. And so you just start to repeat the same statements over and over. Then they realize we're not serving pizza, right? We're in the people business. And there's just a much bigger thing happening here, right? It just so happens that we serve pizza while we sell connections and relationships, you know.
I like it. Speaking of that, I was told to tell you guys to eat all the food because they don't want to throw it away. So make sure everybody's eating the exceptional pizza.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So Tim, when did Someburros start?
We opened in 1986.
1986. Okay. Is it on?
I think it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we opened in 1986. It comes from My grandparents opened Poncho's Mexican Food in South Phoenix on Central and Baseline in 1972. In 1986, my mom and dad opened Someburros. And little known fact, my team knows it, but my job back then was to dress in the donkey costume and dance on the corner for the cars to come in. So I started like at the bottom,
Yeah. That's
below plunging toilets. Yeah,
Would you have rather flipped toilet?
I think so.
Yeah. So, all right, so that's a long time. I can't do the math, but so it's 40 years,
Yep.
right? Almost 40 years. Obviously things have advanced, right? I mean, just in the last 6 years, AI, right? So how do you keep that tradition of what Someburros is while integrating technology?
That's a great question. Before I answer it, I do have to say to Anthony and Jamie, thank you so much for including me on this. This is awesome. I'm so glad, grateful for our Someburros team. We have like 8 people here. What he just said, like remember those things. I saw people writing stuff down because I thought that was phenomenal. And I signed up. You asked me to do it, and when I saw there was going to be free pizza, I'm like, I'm in. You know, I'm in. Yeah.
down here. Yeah.
But to answer your question, what I've coined it because it's a very difficult question. When you have a business that's been around 40 years based on family recipes, it's innovation versus preservation. Like, don't change what made you successful, but we also live in an ever-changing world and changing times. So it's balancing that innovation with preservation. And our stories are so similar. The more and more we get to know each other, the more similar they are. But Someburros was started on my Nana Isabel's recipes. And she passed away in 1986, just 2 months before we opened the first Someburros. And I still go to work every day trying to make her proud. I know she's looking down on me. She's looking down on our family. And she's watching what we're doing. And would I ever change her beans, refried beans recipe? No way. Would I ever change her green chili recipe? No way. We're honoring her legacy through our food. And that the fact that thousands of Arizonans have gotten to eat her food that she created with her family recipes and from Sonora, Mexico is special. So we will not change that. At the same time, there are things like in 1986, there wasn't third-party delivery or online ordering or Easy Cater, things like that that are a huge part of our business today. We have to gradually be able to change with the times. So I think at its core, we have to think, and I have to have parameters for how we make decisions. Is this something that makes us truly successful, or is this something that's even going to make us better? So our customers, COVID changed a lot of things. It changed where people want to eat their food. It used to be more common to eat in restaurants. Me and my family, that's our favorite thing to do, go out to eat. COVID changed that where they want to do that sometimes, but they really want to eat around their own table or inside a car on their way to Little League practice, wherever. So we needed to take what our core of what made us successful, being the preservation, and innovate to say, okay, we're going to change our drive-thrus. Now they are a true drive-thru where a mom leaving Target can swing through our drive-thru and pick up food. Somebody's on their couch and there's no way they're getting off the couch because they had 7 beers or because they just don't feel like it. They're a student at ASU and they want to do DoorDash. We got to be there for them to be able to do that. We want frictionless ordering however they want to do it, whether it's around our table or theirs. So it's a constant battle. It's a blessing to have been around for 40 years, but it's also something that we have to be very careful and very strategic around because some of our customers have been coming for 40 years and they will be the first ones to tell you when we've changed something that they don't like. So listening for that feedback and just constantly weighing out that battle.
They haven't tried that at all, like tweak things, and they immediately were like, no.
We did something as simple as changing our iced tea, and people were like picketing in the street. Or our quality of disposable fork, and people, like within a day, you guys change your forks. We don't like the new forks. Yeah. So they know, and I make light of it, but those are our core people, and that's part of the preservation. Somebody who's been eating at Someburros for 2 or 3 times a week for 40 years, that's a special kind of person that doesn't like change. But at the same time, those customers are aging out, and we have a new millennials and Gen Z that they don't know all that history. They want what Chipotle told them is real Mexican food. So we need to be able to answer that. So it's a constant battle, but we try to manage it as best we can.
Nice. And sorry, so I'm going to throw this one out at you guys. Anybody can answer this, but AI, right? My 14-year-old daughter is so mad here right now. She's super anti-AI. She has like a VCR in her room. Like she's like, don't use AI. So she'd be mad if I asked this question, but have you guys seen like any aha moments in your businesses where you're able to use AI or something similar?
I mean, I'll jump at it real quick. I was anti-AI also until I started using it, and now I'm pro-AI, but it has to be used in the right way. ChatGPT is amazing, but it can't change the way you think. But if you're going to upload a lot of information and ask it, what should I do in this situation? You don't have to do exactly what it tells you, but it sure is like a great sounding board. I'm lucky I have my wife, Julie. We've known each other since kindergarten. She's kind of like my own personal ChatGPT. When I have ideas, I'll bounce it off her and she'll tell me if they're good or not. But to use it as a resource like that, and I know as we move on in the future, there's going to be ways to use it, and I know we'll talk about technology later, but I think it can be a benefit. You just can't fully rely on it quite yet.
Agreed.
So in the beer industry, I mean, Sue's here as well, but it's kind of like you can use it for a lot of different things, for like a new logo, a new look, can follow up on recipes. There's a lot of things you can do as far as like sales right now. Not necessarily. I mean, obviously you can pull some good information out there and learn some interesting things, but you know, I know a lot of guys in the beer industry that use it because they're like, I want to look, see what my beer label is going to look like, you know, and they kind of know after time actually what you're trying to get at. But I don't use it a whole lot. I'm a little old school, as you'll find out today. A lot of people in the craft industry, they want it to be from you and your ideas, and you know, so if you give them something that's all AI generated, they'll sniff it out pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the creativity of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where my 14-year-old comes in. She's like, that's not real art. I'm like, I know.
You say something, you know, it's good to hear. We got some youth out there that are anti-AI, you know.
Yeah, that's good.
But going back to what you said, there's this, you've been in business since '86. You've been around for how long?
Well, I've been selling beer for 27 years here in Arizona.
So 27.
But my company's only been around for 2 years. So.
So at this point, you know, in our walk, we know what's sacred. You know, you really have to understand that about your organization. And, you know, in hospitality, the Greek word for hospitality is philoxenia. It's made up of two words, phileo, which is to love, and xenios, which is a stranger. So that's what I saw modeled, by the way, 40, 50 years by my grandparents, my mom and dad. And so when you understand, like you said, what you can't change, right? Then you know that you have to do everything you can to protect, right? And so we understand that AI can create some efficiencies, some opportunities to help us see some things. But I told my team, I invest in people, right? Because I want people taking care of people. You know, AI doesn't know how to love a stranger, and neither does a robot. There's efficiency, there's opportunities, but when we understand why people patronize our restaurant, you know, and that's never going to change. If you understand the human soul in our heart, our minds, right, we are designed to be connected. We are designed to be served, connected, taken care of, loved. That is impossible to do without another human doing that with a heartbeat. So it's just, you know, we didn't have these answers, you know, 30 years into our business. It's just more, the more we reflect, the more we understand what makes us us and what are we really trying to protect. It really helps you know what you need to do and not do.
Yep.
You brought up a word when we were all about this, flossom.
Yeah.
Flossom hiring. You said, what is flossom?
Flossom, funny word. How many people have heard of flossom before? No?
Because of this guy.
All
All right.
Yeah.
So flossom, I came across it because, you know, I'm probably my hardest person on myself all the time. And it's kind of like I found that if I can recognize my flaws and embrace those flaws, but know that I'm awesome, right?
So good.
It's flossom. Okay. So I took that and I adapted that to hiring people and finding good people that were exceptional people, that they were a little quirky. They might be a little different. But you surround yourself with a bunch of people that are actually flossom. You'll have a dynamic team that will go out of their way for you, and you'll see amazing results. You know, I took a couple definitions that what I thought was flossom, and then you guys might think it's a cool word, but it's about owning your mistakes and quirks rather than trying to hide them. Admire and embrace your flaws. They make you who you are. Okay? That was the biggest one that stood out to me. And it's just a funny word that I came across one day, and I believe in it ever since. So embrace your flossom, And hopefully you leave here tonight going, wow, that's kind of a fun little word. Because it's fun to say, it made me giggle, it made me laugh. And it's like when Teddy's happy, things happen. So, yeah. Teddy liked wingies, so, and have a good time. So, but Blossom was one of those things, but, you know, Anthony said it best, we're in the people industry. People, you create relationships. My leadership here in Arizona is just like an aggregation of a bunch of awesome relationships with people. And, you know, when I started doing Easy Local, like Arizona Local, all I wanted to do was sell great beer to great people. And I put it out there on my page, and that's what I stick to. It's very simple. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are in this industry that aren't great people, like these guys I'm sitting next to. But there's people that want to support. There's people, they want that human touch. They want the conversation. They want to be felt special. You know, and that's what I go out and do best. And that's why hopefully I'm here to tell my story tonight and have some fun with you guys. But yeah, I don't know if that hits, but you guys are all flossing for coming out tonight. Thank you.
I'm stealing that for sure.
Yeah, you can have it.
Have you trademarked that?
No, I'm not trademarked that. No. It might be a good beer, you know. Yeah. But it's got a bunch of flaws, but it's awesome. Yeah, I don't know if that would work.
Don't put that on the
No, I can't do that. Yeah.
So, okay, so this is now the rest of these questions are kind of for anybody who wants to take these, right? So, with you guys being so people focused, right? How do you create, what do you do to create the, I guess, avenue for your employees to get feedback and then to show that you're actually listening to the feedback?
I'll jump on it. I think that's so important. Like back when we had one location, and even when we had two, and I was the manager of the second location, like you are boots on the ground. You are interacting with the customers every day. And so you get that direct feedback every single day, whether you want it or not. Now, with multiple locations, you can't be everywhere every day, which is hard. So you have to trust the feedback and the perspective of your team members that are in the restaurants. And so when they give that feedback, I don't just take it as lip service. I take it as, wow, I need to hear that. We need to, you know, and it can't be anecdotal. It might be one story, one customer, but it can be where you get enough of that feedback and you need to take it. And the way that they know you're listening is when you take action on it. If they continue to tell you the same thing and you're like, okay, yeah, I got it, that's going to let them know that you're not paying attention. I had, we did a little thing at Someburros called Coffee with Tim, where we put a QR code in all of our restaurants in the kitchen, and any employee could scan that code and it would set up a Calendly meeting with me. They come to our office, and it didn't matter if they're washing dishes, if they're dressed in the donkey costume, or if they're running a store. They could come because I feel like that feedback is so valuable, and I want to know if our dishwasher comes in and says, this new dishwasher company sucks and the machines don't work and we're wasting soap, like I'm not going to get that information unless I have that conversation. So that type of feedback is so important to me in everything we do, because can't be there every day, all day, but I need to get that feedback because I trust our people and I trust their perspective.
And you got a lot of people standing like QR code? You have
Yeah.
a whole schedule from that?
I was pretty booked up for a while. It was chaotic, and I still have the notebook from all the meetings. Like I filled a notebook with their thoughts and ideas, and I mean, I found some things out about people that were managing our stores that maybe shouldn't have been in charge of people. So it was actually a great way, like kind of the old show Undercover Boss. Like rather than me going undercover, I actually got their direct feedback of what was really happening in their stores, which was enlightening, mostly in great ways though.
You could have done that in the donkey costume.
I could have, yes, that's right. Dang.
Correct.
I might take you up on that.
You guys want to add to that, like feedback from employees?
I mean, you know, it took me a long time to get here, maybe 45 years. But I realized you have all the answers right in front of you. They're walking in your door every day. And I think as leaders, as we build a business and we grow an organization and you start doing some things right, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to keep thinking you gotta figure it all out. You gotta have all the answers. When I've just been coaching our leaders is the answers are within, you know, and so, you know, we have my brother-in-law's here, my sister, they've now become brand ambassadors, and then my dad's so they're walking the restaurants, the floors, and my dad does, and then he has this little clipboard, and then I sit down with him every 4 weeks, and let me tell you what I see here, right? You know, what are we doing? You know, and so, but it's like being available. You know, I just talked with my brother-in-law on Friday. Like, make me a list, help me understand what you're seeing, right? So you have that, right? But then you have your guests, right? Who are going to tell you. They've been coming here as long, you know, what a blessing that is, and you got to value that. And then it's like the same thing we do in the kitchens. I tell our managers, like, after the end of the shift, just ask the employees how it went and what did we do right? What did we do better? What can we do better? Right? Like, they're going to tell you the answers. And so just some encouragement for us business leaders put a little too much pressure on ourselves is the answers lie within. We just got to extract the information and then sit with good advisors, sit with your team, and then figure out what those next steps are. You know.
So, you know, real leadership really shows when things get hard, right? So, can you guys think of something, a hard thing that you guys have had to go through and have to lead your team through? And how do you do that?
I got something. The biggest thing for me back in the day was when I had a team and COVID hit, obviously. COVID hit a lot of people in different ways, especially the on-premise. You guys know what the on-premise is? Restaurants, bars, golf courses. Off-premise would be all your stores out there, your supermarkets, your Circle K's of the world. So when you have a team of salespeople, half of them do off-premise, the other half do on-premise. And when the on-premise was hit so hard, they didn't know what direction they were going to go in. People thought they were going to lose their jobs. People were going to go out of business. We were all in a weird spot. So I got an opportunity to get with the team, just listen to them, listen to their thoughts, and it was a good time to shift the on-premise people to learn what the off-premise people do. But didn't forget the on-premise, because the on-premise was still open. They just couldn't have, a lot of the bars weren't open, but the restaurants were. They were doing food to go and things like that. So creativity was go and support those restaurants, buy food, drop it off at a wholesaler, go to another restaurant, buy food, give it to employees. Keep these people in business that kept us in business and let them know that we cared and we were there for them. So that was the struggle. Now the other people in the industry, they're not making much money. So now you have bartenders that are moving in with bartenders and, you know, all of a sudden they're moving in with 4 bartenders. I mean, I heard all the stories and I'm like, well, how are you guys doing it? There was like community. And so I called a bunch of, you know, different people I knew in the industry. I'm like, hey, can I get this from you? Can I get this from you? Before you knew it, I had like $100 worth of stuff, food, snacks, water, NA stuff, heavily discounted beer. But it created a drive-through. And this drive-through, so we were all wearing our masks, it was all done right, and everybody got a bunch of food and cool stuff, like a car wash from Cobblestone, a gift card from here, a free pizza here, food to make at home. But it took my whole staff, you know, it took us a long time to build these kits. But we did it together, and we did it for community. We did it for people in the industry. We would go to those restaurants and pick up pizzas and salads and drop them off to, you know, at the distributorships at the time. And it created a great community for our team. And I got to see how cool these people were in the care. Then we forgot, we weren't so worried about our jobs and what's going to happen. But I mean, it was a crappy time for everybody, but we all got through it for the most part. And so that was a hard time, but it really showed good team efforts and made me really proud.
Yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say we had a similar experience during COVID. I won't go too much into that, but I think what I do know is as humans, we are all wired to avoid pain as much as possible and avoid making mistakes. And we do that as for self-preservation, but we learn so much more from our mistakes and from our pain. And what we went through as a company during COVID, in 2008, during the recession, like you learned so much about yourself and about your people. And I truly believe we're stronger as a company because we went through that. Just like a team, you learn more from a loss than a win, and you're trying to figure out what we did wrong. I feel like the wins are great, and we'll take those all day. But for those of you who are business owners, restaurant owners, like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and take a risk, because worst case scenario, you fail, and then you learn a lot from it. So I just wanted to add that because I feel like we're all averse to pain and averse to challenges, but sometimes and oftentimes those are the biggest learning experience we have in our lives.
Yeah. And I'll just say this as it relates to culture, you know, get clear about why you exist if you know that North Star, if that's what you want to call it. You know, as leaders, you know, in those challenges, there's always an opportunity. And we just reminded everybody, you know, so ours is, you know, why do we exist? We exist to enhance the lives of others. So we just had to remind our team, because it was so polarizing. Everybody had their way that they wanted to do things and what other people should do, right? So it becomes this, you know, you versus me versus like, aren't we here for one another? Can we enhance the lives of one another? And so those guests walking in the door, if we're at each other's throats, right? Like, and so a lot of times I'll say, you know, how many ingredients in cheese pizza, you know, in our staff meetings, and they're like, well, 3 cheese sauce still. And they're like, no, wrong. And they're like, oh wait, I forgot oregano, you know, and it's like, no, there's 16, right? And so what I try and do is I use the metaphor of pizza, like how many things had to come together and how many ingredients are in our dough that had to come together to make something great? How many ingredients are in our sauce that came together? So those things separately could not just make a cheese pizza. And so when we come together, getting everybody to understand that togetherness and just being unified, you know, is how we overcome these challenges. But when we make it about ourselves, oh, we mess it up. But if we make it about one another, and then those who are providing for us and understand what our community's going through and how they're walking through the door, those are the opportunities, you know. And so it's just another thing of where I look back and I go, that was when you brought up COVID, I'm like, yeah, that was the worst thing ever. But we were able to learn a lot through that as well, you know. And it's just keeping things on that higher level, you know.
I feel like Anthony is the Yoda of the restaurant business. Like, I'm learning so much tonight. You hit me with so much wisdom. I can't wait to rewatch this on YouTube.
I agree.
Yeah.
No less than YouTube, but I know of like if I'm struggling, I'm just going to look at it.
Yeah.
So well, let's go back a little bit then as far as like, so how do you bring on the right people? Right? Like how do you hire on the right people to kind of do that when you guys are trying to do
I think I recovered. In the beer industry, it's a little different from maybe the restaurant. I mean, you know, I look at people, like I said earlier, differently with the Blossom approach that I had, but depends what you're needing to hire for. I mean, sometimes you need somebody that's super analytical. Sometimes you just need a street pounder. Sometimes, you know, for me, it was always a different situation. But it had to be the right person for the right fit for the right reasons. Usually you can see if they're going to fit in your culture right away. I always had some really fun interview questions, but, you know, that was just me. I would say interviewing people, it's huge, but getting to know people, asking the right questions, obviously in the beer industry, there's a lot of people you can actually research and look around and see what they're up to. And there's a lot of good people out there, and I was fortunate to hire a whole bunch of good people and made me look really successful. So, yeah.
Do you, as a requirement in the industry, you have to go out drinking with somebody?
That happens quite a bit. You know, that's always kind of like, hey, we need to sit down and have a pint.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to be a good pint. You know, it's going to be, this is where you want to listen and ask those questions, and, you know. But, yeah, in the beer industry, obviously, you know, beer's always going to be around. You're going to try it. You know, I always call it quality control. So you just got to watch it, because sometimes quality control turns into other things. But quality control, you got to make sure your beer tastes good out there, right, too? 100%. So
One thing that I feel, the movie and book Moneyball had a huge impact on me, and it's about how sports teams or baseball teams were valuing the wrong information. They all had a lot of stats, but they weren't putting the right emphasis on the right things. And for me, I think restaurants do that constantly. Like, I'm looking for a whole different skill set than a lot of people. If you send me a application and it's like experience at, no offense, but Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, you know, McDonald's, all these different places and all these different shift leader, that, like, to me, a lot of places value that stuff. I value that first handshake, that eye contact, that interaction. The first 30 seconds, I can already tell if I want that person to be a part of our company or not. Call it judgy. Maybe that is really judgy. But I am judging them by their personality. Did they show up on time for the interview? Right there, that's going to tell if they're going to show up on time. So there's so many skills and things that I look for in an interview. And then the other thing is there's nothing better than an interview. The better way to interview somebody is not by bringing them in for a 15-minute conversation, but it's by having them work for you. So all of our managers, no, not all of them, we have about 105 managers at our stores. only one of them was not hired from within, working in the kitchen or the counter, and worked their way up, because we see how they work in the stores. We see how they show up on time, how they come in, how they cover for others, how they're a part of the Someburros familia. And that is like the best way that they can show what they do. So those people become our shift leaders, become our managers, and all of our general managers have come up through the company. We just haven't had great success. That inherent culture that you get when you work for a family business is different.
Yeah.
And just because you've worked at Cheesecake Factory doesn't mean that you're going to fit into our culture. So that's kind of our stance on it. We'd rather take somebody with the ability and teach them the skills they need to be successful.
Yeah. No, I think you got it. Yeah, right there. That family aspect.
So for you guys individually, like, what is like one leadership habit or mindset that you think has had the biggest positive impact in your role in the company?
Go ahead, Anthony.
This one's I'm gonna try to. I got a lot to say on this one, so I'm gonna try and make it tight here. I think what I've really helped, and is, I wouldn't say help past tense, helping just starting to really figure this out, is I'm learning to help our leaders connect, right, to the bigger purpose in what we do. And that's, so we have our fundamentals that we talk about weekly. We have our culture. And so what I noticed was they liked it and they appreciate what we do. But what I've learned, I've been in a lot of different organizations, YPO, strategic coach. I've had a lot of look into a lot of different people and do some mastermind groups. And you realize, it's easier to become successful and it's much harder to stay successful. And so what I mean by that is I see, and I've experienced myself, is that if you don't know what it is that fills your cup every day, about what you get to do every day in our roles. So there's the job, the tasks, and then there's really like our purpose, our God-given purpose of just why we're here. What is it that makes us go? And so I see a lot of people who can create some great widgets, build a business, but they aren't aware of really truly what brings them joy, right? And for it could be different things. For me, it's helping people grow, right? And building them and seeing things in them that they don't see in themselves. And then just helping them reach, that next goal. And then it's that service part of just being there, putting yourself last, right? That's when you become a leader, when you have to put everybody first, you put your last, and that's an honor. And so what I don't see is we all think about becoming successful. And it might be, hey, I want to make X amount, I want to get to this role, right? And you're just climbing up that ladder and you're willing to do anything and everything. And then you get there. And for a little bit, it's good. Then all of a sudden, that amount of money that you're making isn't enough, right? You lose sight, and then it's like, well, I don't get paid enough, and the job sucks, because you really find out what comes with the money, the responsibility, right? And so what happens is your cup is just getting drained. And so what I'm trying to do with our managers is what I had to do with myself. That's sustainable, like call it self-care too, is along in my day, I just weave in all those little touch points of like when I can just go connect with somebody, see the smile on their face, see what's going on in their life, right? Ask them what they're dealing with. What are those challenges? Just try and provide some solutions. Just try and provide an ear, right? When I come into restaurants, it's just, how do I help? What can I do? How can I serve? And so I just visualize your cup is filled at the beginning of the day, or maybe you didn't even get it refilled overnight, but there's a little bit in it. As soon as you walk in, it just starts to drain. You have to have a very, very keen, smart, focused awareness of what are you doing along within your day with all the problems and all the challenges to fill it back up. And so I think that's just that introspect, that a reflective, like, what is it makes you really, really tick? And not things, like what is it about, what is it in front of us, the low-hanging fruit that really, really connects us to our role and our bigger role and whatever that is. And I just have, I've seen so many people get there and then go down fast, right? And it could just be because it's not what they thought, right? There's that disappointment. I think that's the danger, right? We think there's something there, and you get there and you're like, it's not what I thought, right? And then it becomes about something else, and you might chase a little bit more money, or it's that, I don't want to be district manager. I think if I had operations and I can tell even more people what to do, right, then I'm going to have a better time. And it's really just, I know what that is, and I can do it having coffee with my wife in the morning, and I can do it with my kids, and I could do it with each one of you. And so it becomes like a switch that you turn on and you never turn it off, right? You can't be two different people, so really figuring out who you are and what really matters, and how does that really fill you up, and then just weaving that into your day-to-day. And I don't feel like, as challenging as our roles are, that I have a job and I have real problems, because I get to do what I love and help people grow.
I think that was very well said, and this is going to overlap a lot, so I'll keep it shorter. But if I had like one leadership legacy to leave to our team, and it's easy to talk to them because a lot of them are here tonight, is like to continue to lead with your heart. And I hope that's how I run our business. Like leading with your brain and doing it for the numbers and doing it for the money, people see that and they're not gonna work for you like that. But when you lead with your heart and you truly care about people and you care about their families and you care about their kids and their plays and their birthdays and that sort of thing, it's not a superficial birthday card that gets sent out by corporate in their paycheck and you just do a quick scribble. It's actually caring about people, and when you do that, it's reciprocal and they care about the business. And so I don't know how it's not taught in a business school or whatever. It's not in some textbook. ChatGPT doesn't even know this one, but it's just lead with your heart and do what's right for the people, and everything else takes care of itself. I don't know how it works, but I know it does. Yep.
One thing that I truly miss, and I still do it to this day, is just you walk in, whether it's the brewer, the packaging people, anybody that's working at the brewery or the restaurant, you acknowledge them, you smile, you say hi to them. You got away a lot of leadership that I've had to deal with in the past. A lot of people didn't do those things, and those things go a long way with people, getting to know them. But the best thing when I ran a sales team was having those coachable moments, taking people out for the day, seeing what they go through their daily process, see how I can help, but be there to listen and just, I like to talk a lot, so I got to shut up. My wife tells me that all the time. So I try to listen and hear their needs and be empathetic. And you really listen, and then you take those time and you find the day, and then you find the right opportunity to have that curbside coachable moment when you're out and about trying to do sales. And you really kind of let them know, and you express to them, and then they really love that. They love the attention, they want to be heard, and they want to hear your feedback and how you can help. So having the coachable moment whenever you can, whether it's over a cup of coffee or lunch or whatever you do, have that opportunity like your QR, your moment. I think it's more meaningful than I think for most.
So for you, two brands that have been around for decades, Denny's brand is what, 2 years in now? Okay.
No.
How do you, as you grow, right? How do you keep those core values in place, right? Because you've got that drive, that courage, kind of that urge to expand, but you got to be very intentional about achieving that core. How do you do that?
It's a challenge for sure. I know that in my intuition tells me that as soon as we start losing any of our core values, we're done growing. I'm not about that. I don't want to be bigger. I want to be better. And so as soon as we start to lose those core values, that's when it stops. I think that's the hardest thing to scale. We can scale how many pots of beans we make, how many pots of green chili, how many tortillas we get, but to scale core values, culture is very difficult. I think that goes back to what I said about hiring from within. And like, for example, we just opened a store in Buckeye. When we opened that store, it was probably 70 or 80% employees that came from other stores to open that store, because that culture is so important. It's not just because they know they have the combos memorized. It's because they know what a Someburros is supposed to look and feel like, from the culture to how you treat people to how you treat each other. And so then you start bringing on 1 or 2 new employees at a time, and then they get immersed in that culture and they start to understand it too. Or a good culture also has an immune system, and it has its way of kicking things out that don't belong. So that is kind of, once you get it rolling, it kind of starts to take care of itself. But that is something that's so important to who we are as a brand that we're done when we start losing that.
Sure.
Hey, Glenn. Yeah, take it away.
So we just did something. Uh-oh. There we go.
There, yeah. So about 4 months ago, we realized I mean, it's the same thing. You're in this, you want to grow, but not for just the sake of growth, right? And so you said it, like, it's the same thing I say, if we're going to get bigger, we have to get better. And so it's the old, like, what got you here won't get you there. You got to really think about, now what are you doing? You know, my brother-in-law and I were just talking. He's like, you know, if you shoot target practice 20 feet, you know, away from your target, you miss by an inch. If you get 2 times as big or 2 times the length, you miss by 2 inches, or, you know, so it's like squaring that up and understanding what that is. And so we as a board just created something called the family non-negotiables, right? So it's kind of, we talk about what's preservation. And we realized that we were kind of unkind by not ever having this, not directly, but, you know, we have an executive team that wants to build and grow the organization. We just needed to let them know what was off limits and then what was on the table, you know? And so we found that having a lot of, like, incredible new executive team members, they see where we're at, and they see the opportunities, and they're like, hey, we can do this, and you're like, wait, no, no, we can't do that, you know? And so we found that it was just unkind that we didn't have that type of clarity for them, because they just had our best interest. They want to help grow and build this brand. We just never stopped to think, well, you know, a lot of our team had been with us for so many years, so when you bring somebody on that's new, they're like ready to go, and they're just firing out ideas, and you're like, no, we would never do that, right? You know, that'd be the worst thing that we could do. So it's really just about, like, defining what's on the table and what's off, you know, and it does. It roll back to your core values and what's sacred, and I think that's just one of the things that helps us as a family sleep easier, because now everyone understands of where we can innovate and what we never change.
I want to add to that just a quick story, because my wife's here, and like I said, she's my personal, like, Buddha, that we have all these conversations over coffee or wine at night. But it was when we only had like 2 locations, and she's averse to growth. She's content with our life. She's like, why do we need to grow more? We're good. That was, a long time ago.
I know it.
But we were sitting in one of our favorite restaurants that we go to on date night is Pizzeria Bianco. And for those of you who know Chris Bianco, he was back there in the day making every single pizza, winning James Beard Awards, and everything was delicious every single time. And I remember, Julie, we were talking about maybe growing the business, and she's like, would you rather be Chris Bianco or would you rather be Papa John? And I was like, oh, she got to the core of me, because I'm like, no offense to Papa John, he's probably living in a mansion somewhere selling mediocre pizzas all the time, but I don't want that for me, and I know you don't want that for you. I'd rather put my care and energy, and the fact that we're fortunate enough to have multiple locations is because we feel like we can still maintain that quality. But I don't want to be that big Mexican food brand that used to be good and is not good anymore. I want to be that place that people love, and when you see them down the streets, and I got my Someburros shirt on, they're like, oh, I love Someburros, I eat at the Frank Wright location or whatever. That's what drives me every single day. So thanks, Julie, for more good advice.
That's good. So we'll get to questions from the crowd here in a minute. I'm going to kind of put you guys on the spot, but how many people are kind of early in their journey of business ownership or entrepreneurship? We got quite a few. Okay. So I'm always looking for podcasts, listen to books to read, things like that to kind of help me. Obviously nothing can replace experience, but if there's any resources that you guys just kind of live by, is there a book that you read or a podcast you listen to? Moneyball.
Good to Great by Jim Collins is
gosh.
an amazing one. That's life-changing. I do love the podcast, How I Built This with Guy Raz. And it's because he sits down and interviews entrepreneurs that are successful now. But if you listen to them, every single one has a story at the beginning where they almost lost it all or they almost blew it or whatever. And I feel like that's motivating for me to see that everybody struggles, everybody has issues. And every time you hear about the Culver story and how they almost blew it, or there's just so many good ones on there. So I recommend that. And as they talk, I'll probably think of other books. But I love business building books.
I only got a handful. I mean, obviously Moneyball was the first thing when they asked me to do this. I'm like, I'm going to watch Moneyball again. But yeah, Moneyball, there's a great book out there called Traction. Traction was a good one. And The Art of War. There's a couple other things that people have, I wish I read a little bit more. So, I'm too busy building tap handles and selling beer. But yeah, just a couple of those come to mind. I mean, there's a lot of great podcasts out there, whether it's Simon Sinek, watching.
Start with why? Or?
Yeah, he's awesome. If you've never seen him, it's very inspirational. So, but yeah, there's different things for different people. And once again, I bring up Flossom. So that book's coming out soon. Author to be different.
On top of what you said, yeah, Good to Great's fantastic. I would say Radical Candor, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. That's a John Maxwell book. Radical Candor, that's Kim Scott. And then John Wooden on leadership. And then I think just remembering those of you who are young entrepreneurs, why we're sitting in front of you is it's not because of everything we know, it's all the mistakes we made through. Like we're standing on a pile of mistakes, and more than anything, when I pick my daughters up, I don't know if they're in here, but I usually ask them a question, and it's just some of your daily, like how you approach your day is, what about your day was great and why? And then if you could do one thing over, what would you do and why? And so I just try, like sometimes we don't have enough time to read, or listen, but you always have time to reflect. And again, the answers lie within. And so what I'm listening for, and I do the same thing, it's like a post-shift and a pre-shift, right? What happened? Why did it happen? And then how can it impact tomorrow, right? And then what is it, again, learning about ourselves, like why was today great? Like what was the best thing about it, right? And so when we answer those questions, a lot of times it gives us our answers for tomorrow. And so sometimes it's just, I might have an hour a day to read, and sometimes I have a minute, but I always have a drive home and just turn that radio off and think,
I like it. Awesome. Well, so I guess we can take some audience questions now. I guess maybe we'll use microphones. Any who has questions? This guy.
This is, sorry, unless your father or mother started your business, I have a question for the two sons in the room who took over their family business. My business partner, Don, and I, between the two of us, have 8 kids for restaurateurs.
Go first.
Both of us struggle with the idea of succession and how can our family take this restaurant on? And it'd be interesting to know, because right now, when I love my kids, but I don't see any of them operating our business in the future at this point. So what did your parents do to not only bring you into the business, but to help you maybe get an education in business outside of that small, what you do, the culture of your restaurant business, and how did that all work out to get you to want to take over the business? That is a fantastic question, and I definitely don't have all the answers on it. I'm in the process of trying to figure out what the next phase looks like. The one thing that I remember my parents did is there was never any pressure to go into the family business. If we wanted a job in high school to work to earn some extra cash around sports and that sort of thing, we could work in the business. But there was never, I didn't ever have an idea that I was even gonna, I loved Someburros, but I wanted to be a baseball player, or I wanted to be a sportscaster, something like that. And so the fact that there was no pressure, I think eventually drew me back in, because it wasn't something that I was fighting against my whole life. And then when I was in the business, for those of you who are older, probably remember the movie Tommy Boy. Like, I didn't want to be Tommy Boy. I didn't want to just be like the boss's son that's screwing everything up all the time. And so that was always in my head to, like, I wanted not just, we only had one location on Mill and Baseline. I wanted to find a way to take it, to expand it. So, and then my parents had a succession plan in place for me and my sisters. And they did the best that they could with the plan. There were some great parts of it. There are also some flaws in it that caused a lot of hurt over the years, with people working some and not working some, and some people are lifers. So it's a challenge. And now I'm faced with the same challenge. My son's in the back. I have 3 amazing kids who are all in their mid to late 20s, and I have to figure out how to do that the right way. But the number one step that I have right now is none of them have a pressure to go into the business. I think they need to want it, and they need to have a certain skill set that comes with it. And the things we've talked about, they can't do it for the money. They have to do it because they love the Mexican food culture. They love honoring family legacy. They love our employees and treating them like family. That's going to be, what decides what direction that we go next. So I don't have all the answers on that. There's ways I would have done my parents' deal differently, and there's ways, but I don't have. You would think I would have a plan for my kids, but it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, totally we never had pressure, to stay in the business or do it. And just by being in it, I saw the joy and just the connection with repeat guests. So that drew me in. But I'll tell you 2 things. My dad I wish he was here tonight. He'd tell you, he never had a succession plan, right? And that was not kind either. Like, we never knew what was ahead, right? And that's the worst thing you could do to the people you lead is not have a vision and not have a path. And so we had to approach him. And then we asked to buy 1/3 of the business, both my brother-in-law and sister, my wife and I. My dad always made us pay for shoes and clothes and give them $5 for everything we needed, because he always says, if you pay for it, you're going to take care of it, And so that mindset, right, is like, okay, you're going to look after it, right? And so we approached him with that. So that was like step 1, and he was great, and then after that, he was still holding on a little too tight, so he would always say, you guys are in charge, you're in charge, son, and then, we're having a family meeting, and it's like, I'm not in charge, you know what I'm saying? And so, you're trying to like, well, Dad, we need to, and he's like, but I don't understand why, and you're getting into these things, and you're like, okay. I sat him down, and I said, let me just say it like this. You used to drive the car, I used to sit at the passenger seat, and you'd point everything out to me. And then you'd let me drive the car, and you sat in the passenger seat. And the only difference was I'm driving the car, and you're still telling me where to go, right? And then I told you about that. I said, I need a little, let me try some things. And then you're in the middle seat, and you're still telling me where to go and where to turn. And then you got in the back, and you're a little quieter, but I can still hear you. Right? And I just said, listen, if you want to help me be the best that I could be and really preserve, right, what we work so hard, your legacy, I need the ability to do the things that I think are right through others, still have a team around me, but I need to know what I know and see what I know and see what I don't know. And I will be accountable to you. Everything you don't like, you can tell me, and everything you like, you can tell me, but I don't want to wonder when you're 6 feet under, right, is what I told. I said, so I need you to get out of the car, right, and I just need to let me drive, right? And so I needed that as a son, as a CEO, I just needed to know, right? And so that was one thing, and once he did that, it really helped him to see what I was capable of and what I was, and shaped me. All I wanted to be was shaped, right, and led. And so that brought us to the last step, which we just as of July 1st, we completed an ESOP. We did an employee stock ownership plan. And, we don't have, like my brother-in-law and sister, we have one niece in the business now. I don't know if my kids are going to do it. But you could probably see this within your organization. We saw a bunch of our team for many, many years acting like owners. So we just wanted to make it official and give them a piece of it, right? So we did a 49% transaction, just transfer of the stock. Because as my dad said, and we were talking about this 2 years ago, and you would agree with this, our restaurants are good for the community. And you see the events and life happening and, people gathering around your food. They use it for celebrations, right? There's celebrations of life when people pass. It's their favorite place. They have grandma's, grandma and grandpa's 50th anniversary. So we started to see all these things and we said, as much as we'd like to keep owning this, right? We just think it's much bigger than what we ever thought it would be in terms of the impact it has for our community. And so we put that above our own interests and we thought, wouldn't this help us get better? And so succession planning, that was something 5 years ago I would have never said we would do, but we really started to understand why it was a necessity, and then you just have to be willing to act on it. It was just more about doing what is right because it is right, and rewarding those who made you successful, and so whatever that looks like, we just want to be better too. Yeah. And so it was like now we have 1 in 3 employees are owners, rather than 6 out of 425. So
That's awesome.
Teddy, you're just taking over the mirror.
Well, my kids help out, so they help out with social media. I mean, I'm family business. My wife does the books. They do everything else from coming up with the beer ideas, distribution, sales, marketing, they do all the events. I build every one of my tap handles at home out of skateboard trucks, skateboard wheels. So keeping really busy, but I would say maybe, I have 3 daughters, 24, 22, and 19, so we'll see. Yeah.
Questions, other questions? Question behind you.
Hi, how do you set boundaries with your team? I own a donut and coffee shop, or multiple donut and coffee shops, and so I have chefs starting at 2 a.m. and I will get texts at 2 a.m. or calls that something's going on, and then calls or texts throughout the day. And I want to be open to feedback and communication and all ears, but at a certain point, that means I'm just kind of going 24/7. So how do you set boundaries while also still being open to feedback?
That's a great question. And it's difficult or different at different levels, of the business. I feel like one thing that we did a couple of years ago is we created a communication protocol of what deserves a text, what deserves a call, what deserves a meeting, or a one-on-one, what deserves a meeting. Because I don't need a 2 a.m. text to tell me that, whatever, like the new soap isn't working and like to mop the floors. Like, that's not a text. That could be an email for sure. But if it's, hey, we have an employee problem and it's pretty serious, that also shouldn't be a text or an email. We need to have a sit-down conversation with that because sometimes those 2 a.m. phone calls are necessary, like the alarm's going off and that sort of thing, but they're not always necessary. But this is really important now with our GMs and their staff. We were having a GM burnout problem, and it's because of text, because their team was texting them all the time at all hours for everything, a no call, no show, whatever. And so that communication protocol really helped eliminate a lot of the small things that didn't need to be urgent. They were important, but not urgent. And so that's kind of how we handled it. And it doesn't weed out everything, but I think as a set of rules, it's really helped us.
Yeah, just for the sake of time, I want to echo that. Like, we don't have that. So, hey, you want to break them down, right? Like, but the Eisenhower principle, right? What's urgent, but not for what's important, like to have like those boundaries. But I'm going to be a downer here. It is just the world we live in. Like it's just too much access all the time. And people don't know, that's not I don't need to know that's right, especially not now. And I think we're all feeling it in terms of really 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it's just happening. And so I would just say, you have to give them permission to fail. Like, you got to accept that as part of the journey, and then just remind them, like, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like, if you do that, so it's just really like what becomes urgent. But I just think it's just we're all in that same fatigue, and I don't really have the answer other than what I would like it to be is, a follow of protocol. And it's still our the generation, and all of us are pretty used to Texas too, but it's tough, so. Got anything to add to that, Ted?
No.
Let me add
You
one
guys got
thing.
it.
Yeah.
I just need to apologize to Danielle here, who I texted at 2 a.m. the other day about a fundraiser. Sorry, that should have been an email.
You know, follow your.
I didn't follow the protocol. She said in her reply, very passive aggressively, I'll show you how to set a time to text on your phone.
That's a good team member right there.
Yeah, she was. She was giving me that direct feedback. I appreciate it. She's probably rolling her eyes over there.
Thank you. I live in Washington, and I co-own AZ Chimney Cakes with my sisters, 3 of them, and my mother. And so my question is, you talked a lot about your employees, which is so crucial. We've been in business for a little over a year, and I'm just curious if there's one top thing in terms of managing the family dynamics that maybe you wish you would have done way early on before you had 17 locations. That could maybe help a gal that's only been doing it for a little over a year.
Yeah. Good luck. Yes. Yeah, wine helps. I think something that's important is having defined roles for each person and pay that is like the right ratio for the amount of work or the time that somebody's spending or the amount of value it is to the business. Like, people shouldn't be paid more because they're an owner. We got in that problem for a while. Like, people should be, what's your skill set? What are you great at? Let's make sure it doesn't overlap too much with everybody else. And then let's pay you accordingly what we would pay somebody if we hired them off the street. Like, I love that you're family because you care so much about the business. But if we were to hire somebody off the street, what would we pay you? And if you can try to keep it as black and white as possible, that would kind of be my advice for that.
So you're saying I'm going to get a raise? I just want to it's hard, right? Like, be good to yourself. We didn't get in arguments or, it wasn't like crazy, but we did a lot wrong. We just didn't know how to communicate. We didn't have defined role. Like, we knew what our job position is, but we didn't necessarily have the clarity and the definition of pay scales. And, so we had to work a lot of that out, as we were dealing with the problems. And I think it's just, because you got to have Thanksgiving dinner and birthday party, that was the thing. It was just like, do I say this to my dad now when I'm going over to his house on Saturday, right? So there was always that, always behind everything. And then you go on vacation together, and so I would just say do something, and work at it, and just make sure that everybody understands that it's hard and it's never really going to be simple and as easy as you think, but do your best to do it behind closed doors. That's what I would just like, whatever the tensions are and the issues, right? Do that behind the door. You've got to be a family that's united and together. We didn't always do that perfectly, but I think we've done a good job, and just remember that just give yourself some grace and mercy, because there's nothing harder, than being in a family business. But if you can get that right, the blessings and the joy, it's just such a model for success, in so many different ways, because you do have to show grace, mercy, tolerance, forgiveness, and acceptance more than anything, with anyone else than with your family, So just be good to yourself, and, it's extremely challenging.
That was really well put. For our small business, like I said earlier, my wife does all the books. She does my payroll, which is just me. My daughters, like I say, help out with social media, so they get paid a little bit of things. But a lot of it is with everything. It's communication, I need to be things like be a little more mindful when I'm doing like expenses and, when I'm racking up a bunch of things where I have to be organized and sometimes I'm just not. So I have to be mindful of her time because she does help out a lot. She's got a full-time job too. And so, it's been a challenge, the first year and a half, but it's getting better. There's certain things or applications you can use, so it makes her job a little bit easier. So I need to be better at that, but it's a lot of it's communication, so you don't have those frustrations, and you just got to be mindful of each other's time and patient. And it's a family business, and you should be able to celebrate the big wins and have fun doing it. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
I have a question for you. Do you have clearly defined rules for each person?
Well, so what's interesting about what you just said is we have roles. I have a barber background too, and I made my whole family go through this whole Kanban board, how to exercise. But we didn't necessarily put like pen to paper to say, hey, this is your job description. We said, here's the role as a social media manager. What are the projects you're working on? What are the things? But we didn't necessarily say, hey, the expectation is the project manager or the social media manager is going to do X. And so I think that actually would be a really, really helpful tip to say, if we were hiring someone off the street, these are the things we would expect from them. So we shouldn't expect less from you if you're going to hold that role.
Amen.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would assume that the longer it goes, the harder it gets.
Yeah.
How's it going so far?
You know what? It's going great. I talked to a couple people here tonight that the summer was a little brutal.
Yeah.
For me, from a sales background, I go, I know the snowbirds are gone, but there's got to be something else we can do. So it's a constant iteration of, okay, what's our next strategy? How do we do this? Which is great. But again, for me, I'm the oldest of the board, and so I have this kind of, I got to figure out what everyone needs to do and help them find their way. That's just how I am from a mentoring perspective. So I think having those clear guidelines, though, would be really great. But yeah, one thing that I will say, just compliment, is just the small business community, the family-owned businesses. I've had a lot of success in networking and just meeting people in the community, and I felt really, really great about that. Again, coming from a sales background, it's a little cutthroat sometimes, so to have people that are so welcoming from a community standpoint is really great.
And sometimes it just helps to let everybody, well, it was crappy all summer for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Other questions? Do we have any other questions? Sue?
Thank you. I'm Sue Rigler, and I'm owner of Fun Bottle Brewing Company right here in Tempe. And we will
Yeah.
be 3 years old in December, so celebrating our 3rd year. And thank you very much for all the insight you've given me. And so my question is what project management software, can you talk about that? Because we have events and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, if you will. We have the menu, we have our social media manager, we have marketing, and we have an event plan. There's just a lot of logistics going on in the brewer of the year, all of the year variant. So how do you keep people, we have too many emails laid out before.
Sure.
When you try something, so if you can share some light on that to keep an event or a project organized.
You got anything?
Go ahead. Not really.
Okay.
So Teddy had mentioned a book, Traction. I don't know if you use the EOS, and 90. So 90 is a platform that helps everybody kind of loop into one spot. You can put, and it's not great in terms of the project management itself. It's just like it's got your vision traction organizer, which is like your roles and who must do what, So that's a start, because you can have meetings and projects, your rocks. Like this is what we're doing this quarter, and you can build it all out in there. So at least everybody's got access. I don't have like a great answer other than we're working through Teams, right? And Trello, Basecamp.
Basecamp.
Yeah, is one. Basecamp that marketing used to use. I know that was the most helpful for them, but we needed to all be on the same one. So we use more so Teams. They have a Trello board. And then Teams, and I wish I would have spent time on this about a week ago. They have a couple different levels of project planner, an app that you can get where it will literally it will go deep. You know, we're just using it for basic. So I think it's like hard because everybody uses something different. I think the main thing is pick something and stick with it, and just like if we could just go back and do that rather than have everyone's on 4 different things, and we're all like, we just need to do this, and everyone's like, you know, and so you're just sitting there fighting with them, trying to get them to use the best of, you know, what we can all use rather than what, you know, having everybody on something else. But I don't know, you know, I would try Teams and look into the different apps that attach to it. If everybody's got the software, you know, or Basecamp, I think is what I think is a little bit better.
Zay, question?
One thing I noticed from all of you is that you tend to guys use a lot of metaphors and sayings and things like that. I have like a two-parter. One is, what is the best metaphor or mantra that you guys use or is best representative for your leadership today? And then also, I would like to hear that same question, but oriented towards family and fatherhood.
I have a short-term memory, so I'm going to answer this really fast, otherwise I'll forget it, right? So when it comes to like family, fatherhood, love people right where they're at, right? So it just you make that choice. It kind of goes with like flossing, right? Like we're completely flawed and fallen, and you know we have our stuff. But I think a superpower is when you could make sure that you know your wife, your or husband, spouse, your children know that you love them just the way that they are, and there's nothing that can take that away, right? And then you do that on the business side, right? Where people feel that you know, because we say they love us too, you know, the way that we are, and we don't have it all figured out, and we fall short. So that's the one. And then I'm gonna go back, I might have said it already, but I think it's just significant, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's John Maxwell, that's not me. I wish I coined that one, but that is so true because, you know, otherwise you're just selling and you're just trying to, you know, bring them along rather than like once you know, once you connect with them and show them that like what you're really for them, you know, you're not just trying to get them to do something, you know, that it's really about them. It's amazing. I mean, we got 50 years of that, and we didn't even know we were doing it. You know, it was just taking care of the first employee was like a family member, and we just know nothing different, you know, so it's just like taking care of that way.
I'm going to answer the first one, the metaphor. Like one of the metaphors for leadership that really hits home, especially for right now with the role that I'm in, is let the bread bakers bake. And I have a tendency, or most entrepreneurs want to like do everything. And so when you walk down, you know, in Sprouts, there are people there in the bakery dedicated to baking bread. So it's better to just go walk and grab a fresh loaf of bread and let them bake it for you rather than baking your own bread every single day, because you don't have time to bake all the bread and do all the other things that you need to do. So that's why, especially once again, people sitting in this room, they're better at their jobs than I ever was at that phase. But I still have an opinion. I'm kind of like your dad in the back of the car now. Like I still have a way that I think things should be done, but I have to, and I do trust them. They're the bread bakers. They know. Danielle knows more about marketing than I ever will. Sam knows more about training than I ever will. So I need to let them do their job and be successful, just like he kicked his dad out of the car, not literally, metaphorically. Yeah. You need to do that as well. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
About fatherhood or family. Same kind of question. What metaphor do you have for you today?
I am blank right now. I'll pass it to Teddy for a second and while I think on it.
I'm still blank. The leadership, like I mentioned before, to me was kind of like all the aggregation of these relationships I've had. But I mean, I'm in the more the sales side of things where I kind of always look in, beliefs of what I try to do out there is if you ever look up the definition of sales, and a lot of the time, the salespeople are frowned upon because they actually do things where they manipulate to get what they want out of you. So there's a manipulation where I truly sell something that I believe, I enjoy, and it's there for my satisfaction, for my family, So to the fatherhood point, I mean, I do what I do as far as everything I do out there for my family. And that's one reason I left what I used to do, so I can live my dream and show that my kids that you can do these things. And, you know, just not to be a follower, kind of go and do what you want to do and take that leap of faith. But, yeah.
I want to add, can I add something to,
You had a great question, right? Two questions, right? It was
Yeah.
about others and then about how we take care of like being fathers. But I want to add one thing about ourselves, right? Because I think that's the other part that we can't forget. It's a great, so metaphor or quote, Christine Kane. I want to just remind you, because we all have ambitions, and we all want to grow and whatever success looks like, but it's, if the light that shines on you is greater than the light that shines within you, the light that shines on you will destroy you. And so it just reminds us of wherever we want to go, whatever that looks like, we need to be feeding and filling ourselves and equipping and arming, you know, because a lot of us have ideas of where we want to go. We're just not prepared when we get there, right? And so, you know, think about where you want to be 5 years from now and start, right, building that light from within, because otherwise when you get there, you got no shot, right? You're just going to break at some, and we see that, right? In society, we see that in athletes and, you know, in Hollywood, you know, just in businesses, you know, it's just because they miss that. One key point is, you know, the higher you go, right, the bigger the light, you know, the bigger the stage. And that's scary. I mean, there's things that I have to do every day that are still like, you know, and so it's just equipping and that armor on yourself and just feeling like you're prepared rather than getting there and going, I can't do this, right? So.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I think that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. Let's give them a round of applause for